Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about Victorian social rules. Trust me, these people had some seriously bizarre ideas about proper behaviour that'll make your modern awkward moments seem like nothing. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, let's head back to Victorian England. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. So congratulations, you just woke up in London sometime around 1850. Your eyes blink open to find yourself in a narrow iron bed frame, not the memory foam mattress you're used to. This one's stuffed with horsehair, slightly prickly, slightly lumpy. The room is chilly, really chilly. The coal fire that was burning when you fell asleep has died down to glowing embers, leaving just enough light to make out the shadows of furniture around you. A bulky wardrobe, a washstand with a ceramic basin, a dressing table with a small mirror. You hear the distant clatter of iron-rimmed carriage wheels on cobblestones outside. A dog barks somewhere down the street. The air smells of coal smoke. Always coal smoke in London. It seeps in through every crack, under every door, through every window frame. Mixed with it is the faint scent of bergamot oil from the perfume bottle on your dressing table. That sharp, citrusy smell that everyone's wearing these days. The sheets around you are cotton, not particularly soft, but clean at least. Your nightgown is flannel buttoned right up to your chin. God forbid anyone should see your neck or wrists while you're sleeping. That would be scandalous. On the table beside your bed sits a small bell. You reach for it and give it a ring. Almost immediately you hear footsteps on the stairs. Your maid, Mary, appears at the door, already fully dressed despite the early hour. "Good morning, miss," she says with a small curtsy. "Shall I draw the curtains?" Without waiting for your answer, she crosses to the window and pulls back heavy velvet drapes, letting in weak grey London daylight. The glass is smeared with soot from the countless chimneys belching smoke into the air. "What would you like to wear today, miss?" Mary asks, moving to the wardrobe and opening it to reveal an array of dresses, each more elaborate than the last. And here's where your crash course in Victorian social rules begins, because what you wear, how you speak, how you walk, who you talk to, when you talk to them, and basically everything else you do today will be governed by the most complex social code humans have ever created. The Victorians were basically playing life on expert mode. One wrong move and boom, social disgrace. "You have a morning call with Mrs. Hartley at 11, Mary reminds you as she selects a day dress in a deep blue, and then tea with your cousin Emily at 4. These morning calls are your first lesson in Victorian social rules. Despite the name, they never happen in the morning. Morning calls take place between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. I know, it makes zero sense. But call them afternoon calls and people will look at you like you've lost your mind. Morning calls last exactly 15 minutes. Not 14, not 16, 15. And you better have a pocket watch to time yourself because overstaying is considered extremely rude. Mary helps you into your clothes, which is a whole process. First, the chemise, basically a long cotton slip. Then the corset. Hoo boy, the corset. Mary puts it around your waist and starts pulling the laces. "Tighter," you say, remembering that a proper Victorian lady is supposed to have a waist you can span with your hands. "Yes, miss," Mary says, yanking harder until you can barely breathe. Your ribs shift slightly. Your lungs can only expand about halfway. This is fashion, baby. Next come the petticoats, 1, 2, 3 of them, each adding a layer of bulk to your lower half. Then the crinoline, a cage-like structure made of steel hoops that makes your skirt bell out around you like a giant lampshade. Finally, the dress goes over it all, with its tight bodice and enormous skirt. By the time you're done, you're wearing about 15 pounds of clothing. Mary does your hair, pulling it back severely from your face and arranging it in a neat bun at the nape of your neck. No flyaways allowed, everything controlled, everything proper. Will you be wearing gloves or mittens today, miss? Mary asks, holding up both options. Gloves, you say, remembering that a proper Victorian lady never ever shows her bare hands in public. Ever. Your hands should remain mysteriously concealed at all times, like some kind of weird hand-based modesty rule. As Mary helps you with your gloves, you remember another cardinal rule: no perfume. Queen Victoria herself has declared that the heavy, musky perfumes of the previous era are vulgar. Instead, you dab a little lemon and bergamot oil on your handkerchief, just enough to smell clean, not enough to suggest you're trying to seduce anyone with your scandalous scent. Fully dressed, you make your way downstairs for breakfast. The house is coming alive around you. Servants scurry about, dusting, sweeping, polishing. The cook has been up since 5, preparing the morning meal. In the dining room, your father sits at the head of the table, newspaper in hand. Your mother is at the other end, already writing correspondence. They're both fully dressed because Victorians wouldn't dream of appearing at breakfast in anything resembling casual clothes. Good morning, you say, taking your seat. Your father lowers his newspaper just enough to nod at you, then raises it again. Public displays of affection, even between family members, are not the Victorian way. No hugs, no kisses on the cheek. Breakfast is substantial. Eggs, bacon, kidneys, toast, porridge. Victorians eat a lot at breakfast. It's their biggest meal of the day. You pick at yours, your corset making it impossible to take more than tiny bites. Remember, Jane, your mother says, not looking up from her letter. Mrs. Hartley's daughter has just become engaged. Be sure to congratulate her, but don't ask any details about the wedding. That would be presumptuous. You nod, making a mental note. This is typical of the invisible rulebook that governs Victorian society. You must acknowledge important life events, but never appear too interested in them. Curiosity is vulgar. After breakfast, you have a few hours before your morning call. You decide to work on your needlepoint, a suitably feminine pursuit. Idle hands are the devil's workshop, after all, and a proper Victorian lady is never idle. You sit by the window in the drawing room, stitching a pattern of flowers onto a piece of linen. Your mother joins you, taking up her own needlework. I saw Mrs. Fairchild yesterday, she says casually. Her son has returned from university. You keep your eyes on your stitching, even though your heart beats a little faster. Thomas Fairchild. You danced with him at a ball last season before he went away to Oxford. He had kind eyes and didn't step on your feet, which puts him ahead of most of the young men you've danced with. How nice, you say, your voice carefully neutral. She mentioned he asked after you. Your mother continues, watching your reaction closely. You feel your cheeks warm, but keep your expression composed. Did he? That's very civil of him. Your mother smiles slightly, satisfied with your restrained response. Showing too much interest in a young man would be improper. The game of Victorian courtship is all about pretending you're not playing it. At precisely 11:15, you put on your bonnet, gloves and cloak and set out with your mother for Mrs. Hartley's house. You carry a small card case containing your visiting cards, little pieces of paper with your name printed on them. These are essential to the ritual of morning calls. Mrs. Hartley lives just a few streets away, but walking too quickly would be unladylike. You adopt the proper Victorian lady's pace. Small steps, back straight, eyes modestly downcast. Your enormous skirt swings as you walk, occasionally threatening to knock over small children or dogs who get too close. People pass you on the street. Men tip their hats. You acknowledge them with the slightest nod, never making eye contact with strangers. A gentleman would never speak to a lady he hasn't been formally introduced to, and a lady would certainly never speak to a strange gentleman. You arrive at Mrs. Hartley's at precisely 11 o'clock. Punctuality is crucial. Being early is as bad as being late. Both suggest you don't have enough engagements to fill your day, which would be embarrassing. The butler answers the door. You hand him your visiting cards, one from you and one from your mother. He takes them on a small silver tray and shows you into the drawing room where Mrs. Hartley and her daughter Charlotte are waiting. Everyone curtsies. No one hugs or kisses cheeks. Physical contact is kept to an absolute minimum. "How kind of you to call," Mrs. Hartley says, gesturing for you to sit down. You arrange yourself carefully on a small sofa, mindful of your enormous skirt. Sitting gracefully in a crinoline is an art form. You must perch right on the edge of your seat to accommodate the steel cage around your lower half. "We were so pleased to hear your happy news," your mother says to Charlotte, who blushes appropriately. "Thank you," Charlotte murmurs, eyes downcast. "Mr. Edwards is very kind." And that's it. That's all the information you're going to get about Charlotte's engagement. Not what her fiancé is like, not when the wedding will be, not how they met or whether she loves him. Those questions would be prying, and Victorians do not pry. The conversation moves on to safe topics. The weather, cloudy but not raining, recent sermons at church, uplifting but not too long, and a musical performance you all attended, accomplished but not showy. Everything is described in the most moderate terms possible. Strong opinions are for the lower classes. After exactly 15 minutes, your mother gives an almost imperceptible nod. That's your cue. You both stand up. "It was so lovely to see you," Mrs. Hartley says, also standing. More curtsies, more pleasantries. Then you're back out on the street, morning call successfully completed. "That went well," your mother says as you walk home. "Charlotte looked well, didn't she?" "Very well," you agree. In Victorian conversation, well is the highest praise one can give. Back at home, you have a light luncheon, then spend the afternoon reading an improving book. Nothing too exciting or romantic, of course. Novels that stir the emotions are considered potentially dangerous for young ladies. At 4 o'clock, you have tea with your cousin Emily, who comes to your house. The ritual is similar to the morning call, but slightly less formal since Emily is family. You still maintain perfect posture, still speak in measured tones about appropriate subjects, still avoid anything that might be considered gossip. After Emily leaves, you have a few hours before dinner. You practice the piano for exactly 1 hour, enough to maintain your skills without suggesting that you harbour inappropriate ambitions of becoming a professional musician. Dinner is at 7, a relatively informal family meal since you're not entertaining guests. Still, you change into a different dress, slightly fancier than your day dress, but not as elaborate as an evening gown. Victorians change clothes multiple times a day, each outfit precisely calibrated to the specific social context. At the dinner table, conversation is polite but not particularly personal. Your father discusses business matters with your brother. Your mother mentions charity work she's involved with. You listen attentively, occasionally offering a gentle opinion when directly addressed. After dinner, you all retire to the drawing room. Your brother and father might have brandy and cigars in the study, but ladies don't drink anything stronger than sherry, and they certainly don't smoke. Instead, you play the piano for the family or work on your needlepoint some more. By 10 o'clock, everyone is ready for bed. Another day of Victorian propriety successfully navigated. As Mary helps you undress, removing the layers one by one, you finally feel like you can breathe again when the corset comes off. "Will you need anything else, miss?" Mary asks as she helps you into your nightgown. "No, thank you, Mary," you say, settling into bed with a small sigh of relief. She curtsies and leaves, taking the oil lamp with her. The room falls into darkness except for the faint glow from the banked fire in the grate. You lie there, thinking about the day, all those rules, all that restraint. It's exhausting, but there's also something almost comforting about knowing exactly what's expected of you at every moment. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what tomorrow will bring in this world of rigid propriety and hidden feelings. You'll need to navigate a formal dinner party, which means a whole new set of rules to remember, but that can wait until morning. For now, you let the distant sounds of the city lull you toward dreams. Your last thought before sleep takes you is of Thomas Fairchild and his kind eyes. In this world where so much is restrained and controlled, even the smallest connection feels significant. You wonder if you'll see him soon and what complicated dance of social rules you'll have to perform if you do. Outside, fog rolls in from the Thames, wrapping the city in its damp embrace. Gas lamps cast hazy halos of light on the cobblestone streets. A carriage passes, wheels clattering. A night watchman calls the hour, and all across London, behind the prim facades of countless houses, Victorians lie in their beds, constrained by their social rules, even in their dreams. Morning arrives with the sound of Mary drawing back your curtains again. The pale winter sun barely penetrates the ever-present London fog. Another day of Victorian propriety awaits you. "Good morning, miss," Mary says, placing a cup of hot chocolate on your bedside table. "It's going to be a busy day." You sip the chocolate as Mary lays out your morning dress. Today is indeed important. You're attending a formal dinner party at the Fairchilds' house. Yes, those Fairchilds. Thomas will be there. The morning passes in a blur of preparations. Your mother insists you practice piano for 2 hours instead of the usual one. The Fairchilds may ask you to play, she explains. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned their new pianoforte. It would be rude to decline. Another Victorian rule to remember: never refuse a direct request to demonstrate an accomplishment, but also never appear too eager to show off. It's a delicate balance. After lunch, you take a light walk in the nearby park with your mother. The crisp winter air is actually cleaner than inside most homes, where coal fires fill the rooms with a fine layer of soot. Ladies stroll along the pathways, nodding politely to acquaintances. Gentlemen tip their hats as they pass. "Remember," your mother says quietly as you walk, "at dinner you'll be seated according to rank. Don't appear surprised by your placement, whatever it may be." You nod. The Victorian dinner table is a battlefield of social hierarchy. The most important male guest sits to the right of the hostess. The most important female guest sits to the right of the host. Everyone else is arranged in descending order of social importance. Being seated near the bottom of the table is a clear message about your status. Back at home, preparation for the evening begins in earnest. A formal dinner party requires your finest appearance. Mary runs a bath for you, adding a few drops of rose oil to the water. The bathroom is chilly despite the small fire burning in the grate. You bathe quickly, shivering, as you step out onto the cold floor. Then the dressing begins. Tonight requires full evening dress. Your corset is laced even tighter than usual. Your crinoline is wider. Your gown is pale blue silk with delicate lace trim. The neckline is lower than your day dress, showing your collarbones and a hint of shoulder. The maximum amount of skin a respectable unmarried woman can display. Your hair is arranged in an elaborate style, with small silk flowers pinned among the curls. A light dusting of rice powder on your face gives you the fashionable pale complexion. No rouge, though. Only actresses and women of questionable virtue wear obvious makeup. "You look beautiful, Miss," Mary says, stepping back to admire her work. You barely recognize yourself in the mirror. You look exactly like a proper Victorian young lady should. Poised, controlled, elegant, your waist impossibly small, your skirt ridiculously wide. Fashion is suffering, but fashion must be obeyed. Your father has arranged for a carriage to take you to the Fairchilds. It's a cold night and walking would ruin your carefully arranged appearance. Plus, arriving in a carriage rather than on foot displays your family's prosperity. The carriage pulls up outside a large townhouse on one of London's most fashionable streets. Lights blaze from every window. A footman in livery opens the carriage door and helps you step down. Inside, the house is warm and bright. Gaslighting, the latest modern convenience, illuminates the entrance hall. A maid takes your cloak, revealing your evening finery. The butler announces your family as you enter the drawing room, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and Miss Jane Wilson. All heads turn. You feel your cheeks warm, but keep your expression composed as you make your curtsies to Mr. and Mrs. Fairchild. And there, standing beside his mother, is Thomas. He's taller than you remember, his evening clothes emphasizing his broad shoulders. He bows perfectly, not too deep, which would seem obsequious, but not too shallow, which would be disrespectful. "Miss Wilson," he says, his voice deeper than you recall. "How pleasant to see you again." "Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your voice carefully modulated. "I trust Oxford agrees with you." The smallest of smiles crosses his face. "It does, thank you, though London has attractions that Oxford cannot claim." Is he flirting with you? It's so hard to tell with Victorian men. Their compliments are buried under layers of propriety. More guests arrive. The drawing room fills with the murmur of polite conversation. Everyone stands. Sitting before dinner would suggest eagerness to eat, which would be vulgar. You notice Charlotte Hartley and her fiancé, Mr. Edwards, across the room. They stand a respectable distance apart. No touching, no meaningful glances. To the casual observer, they might not even be engaged. When all the guests have arrived, the butler announces that dinner is served. Now comes the complex choreography of entering the dining room. The host, Mr. Fairchild, offers his arm to the highest-ranking female guest. The highest-ranking male guest offers his arm to the hostess. Everyone else pairs off according to status, forming a procession into the dining room. You find yourself paired with a middle-aged gentleman you've never met before. Thomas, you notice, is escorting an elderly lady with an elaborate turban of fabric on her head. The dining room dazzles with crystal, silver, and candlelight. The table gleams with polished silver and fine china. Each place setting has an intimidating array of utensils: fish forks, soup spoons, dessert spoons, multiple knives, and more. Using the wrong utensil would be a social catastrophe. You're seated about halfway down the table, not at the bottom, which is encouraging, but not near the top either. Thomas is on the opposite side, several seats away. During a Victorian dinner, you primarily converse with the gentleman seated to your left and right, never across the table. The gentleman to your right turns to you. "I understand you're acquainted with my nephew, Miss Wilson. Charles Pembroke. I believe you danced at Lady Hamilton's ball last season." You search your memory. Yes, you did dance with a Mr. Pembroke. He stepped on your feet 3 times and talked exclusively about his horse. "Yes, indeed," you say pleasantly. "Mr. Pembroke is an accomplished dancer, a small white lie in the service of social harmony." The dinner progresses through multiple courses: soup, fish, meat, game, dessert, each with its own set of serving rituals and appropriate utensils. You carefully take small bites, chewing quietly. A lady is never seen to eat heartily, even if she's starving. Conversation around the table is carefully balanced between interesting and inoffensive. Politics, religion, money, and anything personal are strictly avoided. Instead, people discuss recent theatrical performances, exhibitions at the Royal Academy, the weather, and travels to acceptable destinations like Italy or France. You notice Thomas watching you from across the table. When your eyes meet, he quickly looks away. In this world of rigid social rules, even eye contact can be loaded with meaning. After dessert comes the most gendered ritual of the Victorian dinner party. Mrs. Fairchild catches the eye of the highest-ranking female guest and rises from her seat. This is the signal for all the ladies to leave the dining room, leaving the gentlemen to their port and cigars. You follow the procession of women back to the drawing room. This gender segregation serves multiple purposes in Victorian society. It allows the men to discuss male topics like business and politics. It gives women a chance to use the chamber pot if needed, a necessity given the voluminous skirts that make frequent bathroom trips difficult. And it preserves the fiction that ladies are too delicate to be exposed to cigars and strong drink. In the drawing room, the women arrange themselves in conversational groups. Mrs. Fairchild ensures that Charlotte and her fiancé's mother are seated together, a sign of approval for the upcoming marriage. "Will you play for us, Miss Wilson?" Mrs. Fairchild asks, gesturing to the pianoforte in the corner. Here it is, the dreaded request. You can't refuse, but you also can't appear too eager. "If you wish it, Mrs. Fairchild," you say modestly, "though I'm sure there are more accomplished musicians present." "Nonsense," Mrs. Fairchild says. "We've all heard of your talent." You move to the piano, arranging your enormous skirt as best you can on the small bench. You play a piece by Mozart, technically challenging enough to show skill, but not so flamboyant as to seem showy. You keep your posture perfect, your face composed in a slight smile. No grimacing or swaying with the music. That would be considered overly emotional. When you finish, the ladies applaud politely. You acknowledge their approval with a modest nod, then return to your seat. Your hands are trembling slightly, but no one notices. A proper Victorian lady never shows nervousness. About half an hour after the ladies left the dining room, the gentlemen join them. The smell of cigars clings to their clothes. Some have high colour in their cheeks from the port. The older men settle into chairs, while the younger ones circulate among the ladies. Thomas makes his way to your side, stopping to exchange pleasantries with several other guests first to avoid appearing too eager. "I enjoyed your performance, Miss Wilson," he says when he finally reaches you. "Mozart, was it not?" "Yes," you reply. "His sonata in C major." "You play with great feeling," he says, then adds quickly, "but appropriate restraint, of course." You smile slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Fairchild. I understand you're studying classics at Oxford." And so begins the Victorian version of flirtation, a carefully controlled conversation about impersonal topics with real meaning hidden between the lines. You discuss books, nothing too romantic, music, nothing too passionate, and art, nothing too avant-garde. All the while, you're assessing each other. Is he intelligent? Is she well-read? Would our temperaments suit? You notice Mrs. Fairchild watching you both with a satisfied expression. Mothers are the primary architects of Victorian matches. No doubt she invited your family tonight specifically to throw you and Thomas together. After what seems like only a few minutes, but is actually nearly half an hour, Thomas reluctantly excuses himself. "I should speak with Miss Hartley and offer my congratulations on her engagement," he says. "Of course," you reply, hiding your disappointment. "It was pleasant conversing with you, Mr. Fairchild." He bows slightly. "The pleasure was mine, Miss Wilson." As he walks away, your mother appears at your side. "He seems quite attentive," she murmurs. "Does he?" you say, pretending you hadn't noticed. Your mother isn't fooled. Don't appear too interested, Jane. Nothing scares away a potential suitor faster than an eager young lady. The evening continues with more music, some card games, and continuous circulation of guests around the room. Everyone is careful to speak to everyone else. No one stays in one conversation too long. The appearance of social harmony is paramount. At precisely 11 o'clock, the first guests begin to leave. This signals that it's acceptable for others to depart as well. The Victorians have strict rules even about when to end a party. Your father catches your mother's eye and she nods slightly. Time to go. You make your farewells to the hosts, thanking them properly for their hospitality. Thomas is nearby and bows to you one last time. "Until we meet again, Miss Wilson," he says softly. "Good evening, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your voice giving away nothing of your inner thoughts. Outside, your carriage is waiting. As you settle into the seat, you finally allow yourself a small sigh of relief. The evening went well, no social missteps, and Thomas seemed genuinely interested in you. A successful evening, your father declares as the carriage pulls away. This is high praise from him. Indeed, your mother agrees. Mrs. Fairchild mentioned they're hosting a small musical evening next week. We're to receive an invitation. Your heart beats a little faster. Another opportunity to see Thomas. Back at home, Mary helps you undress, carefully hanging up your evening gown and putting away your jewellery. Your hair, so elaborately arranged, tumbles down your back as she removes the pins. "Did you enjoy yourself, miss?" Mary asks as she brushes out your hair. "It was a pleasant evening," you say, maintaining your composure even with your lady's maid. Servants observe everything and gossip among themselves. Any show of excitement about Thomas might reach his household through the servants' network. When Mary leaves, you sit at your dressing table for a moment, looking at your reflection. Behind your composed expression, your mind is racing. Did Thomas really seek you out specifically? What did his mother's watchful gaze mean? Will he call on you, or must you wait to meet again at the musical evening? Dating in the Victorian era is like playing chess while blindfolded. Every move matters, but half the time you don't even know you're making a move, and the stakes are high. Your entire future happiness depends on making a good match. You move to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly to look out at the foggy London night. Gas lamps create halos of light in the mist. A lone hansom cab clatters past on the cobblestones. Somewhere out there, Thomas Fairchild is perhaps thinking of you too, but in this world of rigid propriety and hidden feelings, who can tell? You'll have to wait and see what the next social encounter brings and what new rules you'll need to navigate. Your next encounter with Thomas Fairchild comes sooner than expected, the very next day, in fact. You're reading in the front parlour, half-heartedly turning pages of a suitably improving book about botany when Mary appears at the door. "Mr. Thomas Fairchild is here, miss," she announces. "He's asking if you and your mother are receiving visitors." Your heart jumps, but your face remains perfectly composed. "Please tell him we are, Mary, and inform my mother. A proper Victorian young lady is never, ever left alone with a gentleman caller. Your mother must be present for the entire visit. Even stepping out of the room for a minute would be scandalous." Mary curtsies and disappears. You have about 30 seconds to prepare yourself. You check your hair in the small mirror above the fireplace, straighten your posture, and pick up your book again, arranging yourself to look naturally occupied when he enters. The door opens, and there's Thomas, looking even more handsome in daylight. His formal morning clothes fit him perfectly. Dark coat, perfectly tied cravat, polished boots. He's carrying his top hat and gloves. A gentleman always removes his hat indoors, but keeps his gloves on until seated. "Miss Wilson," he says, bowing. "I hope I find you well today." "Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, setting your book aside and gesturing to a chair. "Please, be seated. My mother will join us momentarily." Thomas sits, finally removing his gloves and placing them inside his hat. This is the Victorian equivalent of getting comfortable. "I enjoyed the evening at your parents' home last night," you say, keeping your tone pleasant but not overly warm. "As did I," he replies. "My mother was particularly impressed with your musical performance." Before you can respond, your mother enters the room. Thomas immediately stands. A gentleman always rises when a lady enters. "Mr. Fairchild," your mother says, smiling. "What a pleasant surprise." Thomas bows again. "Mrs. Wilson, I hope I'm not calling at an inconvenient time." "Not at all," your mother assures him, taking a seat on the sofa beside you. Now the real dance begins. "I've come to extend an invitation," Thomas says. "My mother is hosting a small musical evening next Tuesday. She hopes Miss Wilson and your good selves will be able to attend." "Ah, so that's why he's here. Not just to see you, but as his mother's messenger. Still, he could have sent a servant with a written invitation. The fact that he came personally means something." "How kind," your mother says. "We would be delighted to accept." "Excellent," Thomas says, his eyes flickering to you. "My mother also mentioned she would be grateful if Miss Wilson might consider performing. Your rendition of Mozart last night was much admired." Now you understand completely. Mrs. Fairchild wants to show you off to her friends. You're being evaluated as a potential daughter-in-law. "I would be happy to play," you say modestly, "though I'm sure your mother has engaged more accomplished musicians." Thomas shakes his head. "None that I'm aware of. Your talent would be the highlight of the evening." Is he actually complimenting you directly? That's borderline scandalous in Victorian terms. Your mother smoothly steps in. "My daughter practices diligently, Mr. Fairchild. We're grateful for the opportunity to share the fruits of her hard work." The conversation continues with this kind of formal back and forth, weather, mutual acquaintances, upcoming social events. Thomas is careful to address most of his remarks to your mother, only occasionally looking at you directly. This is proper Victorian form. After exactly 15 minutes, the prescribed length for a morning call, Thomas stands. "I've taken enough of your time, Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson," he says. "I'll convey your acceptance to my mother. She'll be most pleased." Your mother rings for Mary, who appears to show Thomas out. He bows to both of you, his eyes lingering on you for just a moment longer than strictly necessary. When the door closes behind him, your mother turns to you with a satisfied expression. "Well," she says, "it seems the Fairchilds have taken an interest in you." You try to look only mildly pleased. "Mrs. Fairchild is very kind to include us in her musical evening." Your mother gives you a knowing look. "It wasn't Mrs. Fairchild who just called on us, was it?" Before you can respond, the bell rings again. Mary appears moments later. "Miss Charlotte Hartley and Mrs. Hartley, ma'am," she announces. "More visitors. The morning call circuit is in full swing." Charlotte enters with her mother, both dressed in the height of fashion. Charlotte looks radiant. Engagement agrees with her, apparently. After the usual pleasantries, Charlotte leans forward slightly, her eyes bright with excitement. "Have you heard about Mrs. Pembroke?" she asks in a low voice. Your mother raises an eyebrow. "What about her?" Mrs. Hartley clucks her tongue. "It's rather shocking. She was seen riding in the park with Mr. Foster, alone in his carriage." This is indeed scandalous news. Mrs. Pembroke is married. Mr. Foster is a bachelor known for his flirtatious nature, and being alone together in a carriage, that's practically announcing an affair to the world. "Perhaps there was a footman present," your mother suggests, always trying to think the best of people. Mrs. Hartley shakes her head. "Completely alone. My cousin's wife saw them with her own eyes." This is how reputations are destroyed in Victorian London. One indiscreet carriage ride, a few gossiping tongues, and a woman can become a social outcast. Men have more leeway. Mr. Foster might face some disapproving looks at his club, but nothing more. The double standard is alive and well in 1850. The conversation turns to Charlotte's wedding plans, which are progressing nicely. She'll be married in 3 months. Her trousseau is being prepared. The wedding breakfast will be at the Hartleys' home after the church ceremony. Watching Charlotte's genuine happiness, you feel a twinge of... not jealousy exactly, but anticipation. Will this be you soon, planning a wedding to Thomas Fairchild? Or is that reading too much into a simple social call? After the Hartleys leave, you have barely an hour before your next commitment, a charity committee meeting at the vicarage. Victorian ladies of means are expected to engage in good works, organising relief for the poor and sick. It's considered an appropriate outlet for feminine energy and compassion. The meeting is tedious but necessary. You and a dozen other women from good families discuss winter blankets for the poor, soup kitchens and clothing donations. The vicar's wife takes notes and assigns tasks. You volunteer to collect used clothing from several households. It's a respectable activity that will allow you to make morning calls with a purpose. After the meeting, you walk home with 2 other young ladies who live nearby. The conversation turns inevitably to engagements and potential matches. Did you hear that Thomas Fairchild is back from Oxford? One of them, Emma Parker, asks casually, too casually. Yes, I believe I heard that, you say, keeping your voice neutral despite the sudden tightness in your chest. Emma has always been interested in Thomas. My mother says Mrs. Fairchild is hosting a musical evening next week, Emma continues. We've been invited. Will you be attending? Yes, we received an invitation as well, you reply, not mentioning that Thomas delivered it personally. Emma's smile tightens slightly. How lovely. Perhaps you'll play for us. You're so accomplished at the piano. Mrs. Fairchild did request a performance, you admit. Emma's other friend, Sarah, joins in. Thomas always did appreciate music. I remember him turning pages for the pianist at the Johnsons' ball last season. The implication is clear. Both these young ladies consider Thomas Fairchild a potential match for themselves. The competition for eligible bachelors is fierce in Victorian London, especially one as handsome and well-positioned as Thomas. By the time you arrive home, you're exhausted from maintaining your composed facade. The constant vigilance required by Victorian social rules is draining. Every word, every glance, every gesture must be carefully controlled. You have just enough time to change for dinner, another dress, another style of hair, before joining your family at the table. Tonight, it's just the 4 of you. Your parents, your brother James, and yourself. James is in high spirits. He's been at his club all day, mixing with other young gentlemen of good family. The gender divide in Victorian society gives him freedoms you can only dream of. He can come and go as he pleases, engage in sports, discuss politics and business, even travel alone. I saw Thomas Fairchild at the club today, James mentions casually as he cuts into his roast beef. You keep your eyes on your plate, taking a small, ladylike bite of potato. Did you? Your father says. Good family, the Fairchilds. Old money, solid reputation. Thomas mentioned he called here today, James continues, glancing at you, to deliver an invitation to some musical thing his mother's organising. Yes, he was here this morning, your mother confirms. Very proper young man. James grins. He asked quite a few questions about you, Jane. You look up, unable to hide your interest. Did he? Wanted to know if you enjoy riding, what books you read, whether you're interested in art exhibitions, that sort of thing. This is significant. Thomas is gathering information about you, trying to determine if your interests align with his. It's the Victorian equivalent of checking your dating profile. Your mother shoots James a warning look, silently telling him not to tease you, but you can see she's pleased. A match with the Fairchild family would be advantageous. Thomas is the eldest son, set to inherit his father's banking business and considerable fortune, and he seems genuinely nice, which is a bonus not all Victorian brides get. After dinner, you retire to the drawing room while James and your father enjoy their port and cigars in the study. Another evening of needlework and quiet conversation with your mother. If Thomas Fairchild continues to show interest, your mother says as she threads her needle, we should consider your wardrobe. That blue silk evening gown is lovely, but you'll need something new for the musical evening. This is your mother's way of saying she approves of Thomas as a potential suitor. New dresses aren't commissioned lightly, given their expense. Perhaps the dressmaker could come tomorrow, you suggest, trying to sound only mildly interested. Your mother nods. I'll send a note in the morning. The next few days pass in a blur of preparations for the musical evening. The dressmaker creates a new gown in pale green silk that complements your eyes. You practice piano for hours each day, selecting a piece that's beautiful but not too showy. Mendelssohn's Song Without Words. On the morning of the musical evening, an unexpected package arrives for you. Mary brings it to your room, a small box wrapped in brown paper. This just came for you, miss, she says, delivered by the Fairchild's footman. Your hands tremble slightly as you unwrap it. Inside is a small volume of poetry, Tennyson's latest collection. A small card accompanies it with a brief message in a strong masculine hand. Miss Wilson, I thought you might enjoy these verses. The one marked on page 43 reminded me of your playing. Respectfully, T. Fairchild. You quickly turn to page 43. There's a poem about music with one line delicately underlined. The heart of the listener is moved by the skilled hands of the player. Mary watches your face, clearly curious. It's just a book of poetry, you say casually, as if gentlemen send you books every day. From Mr. Fairchild. Very nice of him, miss, Mary says, a knowing look in her eyes. Servants always know what's going on before anyone else. You hide the book in your drawer. Victorian propriety dictates that you can't openly display it or mention it to anyone. Gifts between unmarried men and women are technically forbidden unless they're engaged. Thomas has bent the rules by sending you this book. If you acknowledge it publicly, you'd be breaking them outright. But in the privacy of your room, you press the book to your chest for just a moment, allowing yourself to feel the excitement that proper Victorian ladies never show. Thomas Fairchild is definitely courting you. That evening, your family arrives at the Fairchild's home precisely on time. Not early, which would seem eager, and not late, which would be rude. Your new green silk gown rustles softly as you step down from the carriage, the crinoline underneath maintaining its perfect bell shape. The Fairchild's drawing room is already filled with guests when you arrive. Your eyes immediately search for Thomas, finding him across the room in conversation with an elderly gentleman. He looks up as you enter, and though his expression remains properly reserved, his eyes brighten noticeably. Mrs. Fairchild greets you warmly, complimenting your gown and thanking you in advance for your musical contribution. She steers you toward a group of young ladies that includes, unfortunately, Emma Parker. Emma's dress is remarkably similar to yours in colour, though not as finely made. She notices the similarity immediately and gives you a tight smile. "What a coincidence, Miss Wilson," she says. "We appear to have had the same thought regarding colour." What she means is, we're both trying to catch Thomas's eye with green dresses. The competition continues. The musical portion of the evening begins with a professional singer performing several Italian arias. Then a gentleman plays the violin. You're scheduled to perform third, which is a good position, not first, which would suggest you're the least important performer, and not last, which would put too much pressure on you. As you move toward the piano, Thomas steps forward. "May I turn pages for you, Miss Wilson?" he asks. This is significant. Page turning puts him right beside you at the piano, a position of intimacy rarely allowed between unmarried people. It's also public. Everyone will note his attention to you. "Thank you, Mr. Fairchild," you say, keeping your voice steady despite your racing heart. That would be most helpful. You settle at the piano, arranging your enormous skirts as best you can. Thomas stands beside you, close enough that you can smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something citrusy. You place your music on the stand, though you've memorized the piece and don't really need it. The sheet music gives Thomas a reason to stand near you. Taking a deep breath, you begin to play. The Mendelssohn piece is lyrical and romantic without being overtly passionate, perfect for a proper Victorian performance. You're acutely aware of Thomas beside you, turning pages exactly when needed. Once his hand brushes yours accidentally and you feel the contact like an electric shock, though your playing never falters. When you finish, the applause is generous. Thomas offers his hand to help you rise from the piano bench. Another small liberty that doesn't go unnoticed by the watching crowd. "Beautifully played," he murmurs as you return to your seat. "Thank you for your assistance," you reply, your voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Fairchild is beaming. Mr. Fairchild gives Thomas an approving nod, and Emma Parker looks like she's sucking on a lemon. The courtship dance continues, one carefully controlled step at a time. After the musical performances, refreshments are served. Thomas manages to bring you a cup of punch without being too obvious about singling you out. He doesn't stay to talk, that would be too marked, but moves on to attend to other guests. Still, the gesture speaks volumes in a society where every action carries weight. As the evening progresses, you notice Thomas's father deep in conversation with your own. They stand by the fireplace, looking serious. Business, perhaps, or something more personal. Your mother appears at your side, following your gaze. Your father is quite impressed with the Fairchild's banking ventures, she says quietly. He's considering an investment. But there's something in her tone that suggests more than financial interest. The Victorians love efficiency. If two families are considering joining through marriage, why not strengthen business ties as well? The evening begins to wind down. Guests start to depart, thanking their hosts for a lovely musical program. Your family prepares to leave, gathering cloaks and gloves. Thomas approaches as you wait in the entrance hall for your carriage to be brought around. "Miss Wilson," he says formally, "might I call on you tomorrow afternoon? There's an exhibition at the Royal Academy I thought you might enjoy. With your parents' permission, of course," he adds quickly, glancing at your father. "This is it, a direct request to court you. Not quite a proposal, but a clear statement of intention. In Victorian terms, Thomas is asking permission to pursue you officially." Your father looks pleased but maintains his dignity. "We would be honoured to receive you, Mr. Fairchild. Around 2:00, perhaps." 2:00 would be perfect, sir," Thomas replies, relief evident in his voice. He turns to you. "Until tomorrow, Miss Wilson." "Until tomorrow, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, your calm exterior hiding your inner excitement. Outside, your carriage awaits. Thomas helps you step up into it, one last touch of his hand on yours before you part for the evening. As the carriage pulls away, you catch a glimpse of him still standing in the doorway, watching you leave. In the dim light of the gas lamps, his expression seems more open, more hopeful than Victorian propriety usually allows. Your mother squeezes your hand in the darkness of the carriage. No words are needed. The courtship has officially begun. Tomorrow, Thomas will call for you, and you'll attend the exhibition with your mother as chaperone. It's the first step on the path that could lead to engagement, marriage, a life together. For now, though, you simply savour the memory of his hand on yours, his eyes meeting yours across the piano, the poetry book hidden in your drawer. In the restrictive world of Victorian society, these small moments are as thrilling as the most passionate declarations in other eras. The London night passes by outside the carriage windows. Gas lamps cast pools of yellow light on the foggy streets. Somewhere in the distance, a clock strikes midnight. Another day of navigating Victorian social rules is coming to an end, but tomorrow promises new challenges and new possibilities with Thomas Fairchild. The following day dawns bright and clear, a rarity in London's normally foggy winter. Perhaps even the weather approves of your budding relationship with Thomas Fairchild. You wake earlier than usual, too excited to sleep, despite knowing that proper Victorian ladies never show eagerness. Mary helps you dress in a walking outfit suitable for an art exhibition, a day dress in deep burgundy wool with a matching pelisse and bonnet. The outfit is fashionable, but not flashy. Appropriate for a young lady of good family being courted by a respectable gentleman. "You look lovely, miss," Mary says as she secures your bonnet with pins, "if you don't mind my saying so." "Thank you, Mary," you reply, examining your reflection. The burgundy colour brings a flattering warmth to your complexion. You hope Thomas will approve. Downstairs you find your mother already in the drawing room, dressed for her role as chaperone. A proper Victorian courtship requires constant supervision. You and Thomas will never be alone together until after you're married, if that's where this courtship leads. "Remember," your mother says as you wait for Thomas to arrive, "enthusiasm is unbecoming in a young lady. Mr. Fairchild should feel he's earning your regard, not that it's being freely given." You nod, though privately you think Victorian courtship rules are exhausting. So much hiding of true feelings, so much pretending not to care when you do. But the rules must be followed if you want to maintain your reputation and make a good match. At precisely 2 o'clock the doorbell rings. Thomas is punctual, another mark in his favour. The butler shows him into the drawing room, where he bows to both you and your mother. "Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson," he says, "I trust you're both well today?" "Quite well, thank you, Mr. Fairchild," your mother responds. "It's a fine day for an exhibition." "Indeed," Thomas agrees. "The carriage is waiting whenever you're ready." Thomas has brought his family's carriage, a handsome vehicle with the Fairchild crest on the door, a clear statement of his family's prosperity and his serious intentions toward you. In Victorian society, every detail communicates something. The three of you settle into the carriage, you and your mother on one seat, Thomas facing you on the other. As the carriage begins to move, you catch Thomas looking at you, admiration clear in his eyes despite his composed expression. "That colour suits you very well, Miss Wilson," he says, then adds quickly, "As Mrs. Wilson's daughter, you've clearly inherited her excellent taste." The compliment is directed partly to your mother to avoid seeming too forward. Thomas knows the rules of the game. "You're very kind, Mr. Fairchild," you reply, lowering your eyes modestly. The carriage makes its way through London's busy streets toward the Royal Academy. Thomas points out interesting sights along the way, addressing his comments mainly to your mother with occasional glances at you. Everything perfectly proper. At the exhibition, Thomas pays for your tickets, another statement of intention. You move through the galleries, admiring paintings of landscapes, portraits, and historical scenes. The exhibition is crowded with fashionable people, many of whom you recognise from various social events. "Miss Wilson, Mrs. Wilson," a familiar voice calls. You turn to see Emma Parker approaching with her mother. Of course, Emma wouldn't miss an opportunity to insert herself into your time with Thomas. "Miss Parker," Thomas says, bowing politely. "Mrs. Parker, what a pleasant surprise." Emma positions herself next to Thomas, commenting on a nearby painting. "Don't you think the artist has captured the light beautifully, Mr. Fairchild? It reminds me of the view from my aunt's estate in the Lake District. You must visit sometime. The landscapes are breathtaking." This is a bold move, essentially inviting Thomas to visit her family's connections. You maintain your composed expression, though internally you're rolling your eyes at her obviousness. Thomas handles the situation with perfect Victorian diplomacy. "I'm sure the Lake District is lovely, Miss Parker. At present, however, I'm committed to business in London. Miss Wilson and I were just discussing this portrait. The technique is quite remarkable." He smoothly guides you and your mother away from Emma toward another gallery, leaving Emma looking slightly put out. Score 1 for Thomas's social skills. As you move through the exhibition, you encounter several other people from your social circle. Each interaction follows the same pattern: formal greetings, polite conversation, curious glances between you and Thomas. Everyone understands what's happening. Thomas Fairchild is publicly declaring his interest in you by escorting you to the exhibition. By this time tomorrow, it will be common knowledge in your social set. After an hour of viewing art and navigating social encounters, Thomas suggests refreshments. The Academy has a small tea room where visitors can rest and converse. He finds a table for the three of you, ordering tea and small cakes. "I hope you're enjoying the exhibition, Miss Wilson," Thomas says as you wait for your tea. "Very much, Mr. Fairchild," you reply. "The new works by Mr. Turner are particularly impressive." "I thought you might appreciate them," he says, a hint of genuine pleasure breaking through his proper facade. "Your brother mentioned you enjoy painting yourself?" "Merely as an amateur," you say modestly. "A proper Victorian lady might pursue artistic hobbies, but never with professional ambitions." "I'd be interested to see your work sometime," Thomas says, then glances at your mother. "With your permission, of course, Mrs. Wilson." Your mother nods approvingly. "Jane has several watercolours in our drawing room. Perhaps you might view them on your next visit." This is significant. Your mother is explicitly inviting Thomas to call again. The courtship is progressing nicely. The tea arrives, temporarily pausing conversation. As you sip from your cup, you notice a gentleman at a nearby table watching your group with interest. He's middle-aged, expensively dressed, with a calculating expression. Something about him makes you uncomfortable. Thomas notices your slight frown. "Is everything all right, Miss Wilson?" You lower your voice. "That gentleman seems to be watching us rather intently." Thomas glances casually in the direction you indicated, then his expression darkens slightly. "Ah, Lord Barrington, don't concern yourself, Miss Wilson, but your mother has also noticed the man." "Lord Barrington," she says quietly. "I wasn't aware he had returned to London society." There's something in her tone that piques your curiosity. "Do you know him, mother?" Your mother and Thomas exchange a look that suggests they both know something you don't. "Lord Barrington has a certain reputation," your mother says delicately, "particularly regarding young ladies." Thomas clears his throat. "Perhaps we should continue our tour of the exhibition. There's an excellent collection of miniatures in the next gallery." As you stand to leave, Lord Barrington also rises and approaches your table. Thomas immediately steps slightly in front of you, a subtle but clear protective gesture. "Fairchild," Lord Barrington says with a slight bow. "Mrs. Wilson, and this must be the lovely Miss Wilson I've heard so much about." His eyes linger on you in a way that makes your skin crawl. This isn't the respectful gaze of a gentleman, but something more predatory. Thomas's voice is perfectly polite but noticeably cooler. "Lord Barrington, I wasn't aware you were back in London." Just returned from the continent, Lord Barrington replies, his eyes still on you. Paris has its charms, but I find London's young ladies incomparable. Perhaps Miss Wilson would honour me with an introduction. This puts your mother in an awkward position. Social rules dictate that introductions should be made when requested, but Lord Barrington's reputation makes him an unsuitable acquaintance for an unmarried young lady. Your mother handles it with perfect Victorian diplomacy. I'm afraid we're just leaving, Lord Barrington. Perhaps another time. It's a polite rebuff, but a rebuff nonetheless. Lord Barrington's smile tightens, but he can't press the issue without appearing rude. Of course, he says smoothly. Another time. As you leave the tea room, Thomas places himself between you and Lord Barrington, his body language protective without being improper. Once you're safely in another gallery, he speaks in a low voice to your mother. I apologise for that encounter, Mrs. Wilson. Had I known Lord Barrington would be present, I would have suggested a different outing. Your mother shakes her head. You couldn't have known, Mr. Fairchild. I'm grateful for your quick thinking. You're burning with curiosity about Lord Barrington and his apparently questionable reputation, but proper Victorian ladies don't ask direct questions about scandalous matters. You'll have to wait until you're alone with your mother to inquire further. The rest of the exhibition passes without incident, though you notice Thomas is more attentive than before, staying close by your side as you move through the galleries. It's rather nice to be protected, even if the threat was merely social rather than physical. When it's time to leave, Thomas escorts you and your mother back to the carriage. As you settle into your seat, he says, I hope the encounter with Lord Barrington didn't spoil your enjoyment of the exhibition, Miss Wilson. Not at all, Mr. Fairchild, you assure him. The art was far too impressive to be overshadowed by a brief social awkwardness. Thomas looks relieved. I'm glad to hear it. He hesitates, then adds, I should mention, Lord Barrington is not received in the best houses in London. His behaviour toward young ladies has been less than honourable. This is as close as a Victorian gentleman can come to warning you about a potential predator. The details are left vague to protect your supposedly delicate sensibilities, but the message is clear. Stay away from Lord Barrington. The carriage returns you home, where Thomas helps you and your mother down to the pavement. At your front door, he bows formally. Thank you for a most enjoyable afternoon, Mrs. Wilson, Miss Wilson, he says. Might I call again tomorrow? There's a matter I'd like to discuss with Mr. Wilson, if he's available. Your heart skips. A matter to discuss with your father. This could only mean one thing in Victorian courtship. Thomas wants to ask permission to pay formal addresses to you, the step before an official engagement. Your mother maintains her composure better than you. I believe my husband will be at home tomorrow afternoon, Mr. Fairchild. Around 3 o'clock would be convenient. 3 o'clock it is, Thomas confirms. His eyes meet yours briefly, and for a moment his proper mask slips, revealing genuine emotion. Until tomorrow, Miss Wilson. Until tomorrow, Mr. Fairchild, you reply, your voice steadier than you feel. Inside the house, your mother waits until the door is firmly closed before allowing herself a small smile of triumph. Well, she says, I believe Mr. Fairchild intends to speak with your father tomorrow about his intentions toward you. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak without revealing too much excitement, still unbecoming in a proper Victorian young lady. If your father approves, your mother continues, you may expect a formal proposal very soon. We should discuss your trousseau. A trousseau, the collection of clothing, linens and personal items a bride brings to her marriage. The Victorian version of a hope chest. Planning it means your mother considers your engagement a foregone conclusion. Yes, mother, you say, still trying to appear appropriately composed. Your brother James arrives home just then, bringing a rush of cold air and masculine energy into the entry hall. "Jane!" he exclaims, seeing your flushed cheeks. "You look like you've received good news. Has Fairchild proposed already?" "James," your mother scolds, "such matters are not discussed so bluntly, but Mr. Fairchild did escort your sister and me to the Royal Academy today, and he will be calling tomorrow to speak with your father." James grins. Well, congratulations, little sister. Fairchild's a good man. Bit serious, perhaps, but solid character. Coming from your brother, this is high praise indeed. He hasn't proposed yet, you remind them both, though your heart is singing at the prospect. "Mere formality," James says, removing his gloves. "The whole town knows he's sweet on you. Oh, and speaking of town gossip, did you hear about Lord Barrington's return? Caused quite a stir at the club." Your mother's expression tightens. "We encountered him at the exhibition. Most unfortunate." James looks alarmed. "You met Barrington? Did he speak to Jane?" "Mr. Fairchild handled the situation admirably," your mother assures him. "But perhaps you could enlighten your sister about Lord Barrington's reputation, in appropriate terms, of course." James nods, understanding. Once your mother has left to speak with the housekeeper about dinner, he turns to you. "Lord Barrington is what we gentlemen call a rake," he says bluntly. "He pursues young ladies with dishonourable intentions. There was quite a scandal last season involving the Matthews girl. Nothing proven, but her reputation was ruined. She's been sent to relatives in Scotland." This is shockingly direct information by Victorian standards. Brothers sometimes took it upon themselves to warn their sisters about dangerous men, bypassing the usual conversational restrictions. "I see," you say quietly. "Thank you for telling me. Just stay away from him," James advises, "though I doubt you'll have to worry much longer. Once you're engaged to Fairchild, Barrington won't dare approach you. The prospect of being engaged to Thomas sends another thrill through you. Less than a month ago, you were simply a young lady in London society. Now you're on the verge of a proposal from one of the most eligible bachelors in town. The rest of the day passes in a haze of anticipation. You go through the motions of your usual activities, piano practice, needlework, dinner with the family, but your mind keeps returning to tomorrow and what it might bring. That night, as Mary helps you prepare for bed, she notices your distraction. "Exciting day, miss?" she asks, brushing out your hair. "Just an exhibition at the Royal Academy," you say, maintaining the pretense that nothing unusual is happening. Mary smiles knowingly. "Of course, miss, and will Mr. Fairchild be calling again soon?" "Tomorrow afternoon," you admit. "He wishes to speak with my father." Mary's eyes widen. "Oh, miss, that's wonderful news." "He hasn't proposed yet," you remind her, though you can't help smiling. "It's only a matter of time," Mary assures you, setting down the brush. "The whole household knows he's sweet on you. Cook says she'll make your favourite cake for tea tomorrow to celebrate." It seems everyone is anticipating a proposal. Everyone except you, who as a proper Victorian young lady must pretend to be surprised and overwhelmed when it finally happens. As you settle into bed, your mind is too full for sleep. Tomorrow, Thomas will speak to your father. If your father approves, and you have no reason to think he won't, Thomas will then be permitted to propose to you formally. You'll accept after an appropriate show of surprise and consideration, and then you'll be engaged. An engagement in Victorian times is a serious matter. Unlike modern casual engagements, broken engagements in the Victorian era can damage reputations, particularly the woman's. Once you accept Thomas's proposal, you're essentially committed unless something truly scandalous comes to light. You think about what you know of Thomas Fairchild. He's handsome, intelligent, from a good family with solid finances. He treats you with respect and seems genuinely interested in your thoughts and interests. By Victorian standards, he's practically perfect. But what about love? Victorians are suspicious of passionate love as a basis for marriage. Compatibility, mutual respect, similar backgrounds and values, these are considered much more important for a successful union. Romantic love, if it develops at all, should come after marriage, not before. Still, you can't help hoping that what you feel for Thomas, the quickening of your pulse when he enters a room, the warmth that spreads through you when he looks at you, might be the beginning of something deeper than just suitable compatibility. Outside your window, the gas lamps cast their yellow glow on the quiet street. A dog barks in the distance. Somewhere, a carriage makes its way over cobblestones. And across London, in his family's townhouse, Thomas Fairchild is perhaps lying awake too, thinking of tomorrow and the question he plans to ask your father. Morning comes too soon and not soon enough. You dress with extra care in a morning dress of pale blue. Thomas once mentioned he admired the colour. Mary arranges your hair in a style that softens your features while still appearing properly restrained. Your father works from home this morning, an unusual occurrence that confirms he's expecting Thomas's visit. He sits in his study, reviewing papers, but you notice he's wearing his best waistcoat and has a fresh flower in his buttonhole. Lunch is a tense affair. No one mentions Thomas's impending visit, but it hangs in the air, making ordinary conversation difficult. Your mother discusses menu plans with the housekeeper. Your father reads his newspaper. You push food around your plate, too nervous to eat. At precisely 5 minutes to 3, you retreat to the drawing room with your mother. Victorian propriety dictates that you should appear calm and occupied when Thomas arrives, not waiting eagerly by the door. You pick up your needlework, though your hands are too unsteady for fine stitches. Your mother sits nearby, ostensibly reading, but actually watching you with a mixture of sympathy and excitement. The clock strikes 3. The doorbell rings. You hear the butler's measured footsteps, the murmur of voices in the hall. Then Thomas is shown not to the drawing room where you wait, but to your father's study. This confirms it. He's here to ask permission to court you officially. Now comes the hardest part. Waiting. A proper Victorian lady doesn't hover outside doors or eavesdrop on private conversations, no matter how desperately she wants to know what's being said. You must sit quietly with your needlework, pretending that your entire future isn't being decided one room away. 10 minutes pass. 15. Your stitches grow more and more uneven. Your mother gives up the pretense of reading and simply watches the clock. Finally, after what seems like hours, but is probably only 20 minutes, the study door opens. You hear your father's voice, then Thomas's. Footsteps approach the drawing room. Your father enters first, his expression unreadable. Thomas follows, looking uncharacteristically nervous despite his impeccable appearance. "My dear," your father says to your mother, "Mr. Fairchild has something he wishes to discuss with Jane. Perhaps we might give them a few moments?" Your mother raises an eyebrow. This is highly irregular. Unmarried couples are never left alone together, even in their own homes, but your father nods reassuringly, and your mother stands. "We'll be just in the morning room," she says, giving Thomas a pointed look that clearly communicates, behave honourably or face the consequences. And then, miraculously, impossibly, you're alone with Thomas Fairchild. Well, not completely alone. The drawing room door remains open, and you know your parents are within earshot, but this is the most privacy Victorian propriety will allow. Thomas stands by the fireplace looking more uncertain than you've ever seen him. His usual composed facade has slipped, revealing genuine emotion beneath. "Miss Wilson," he begins, then stops. Jane, he corrects himself, using your given name for the first time. I've spoken with your father and received his blessing to address you formally. Your heart pounds so loudly you wonder if he can hear it. This is it, the moment every Victorian young lady is raised to anticipate. Thomas takes a step closer, though still maintaining a respectable distance. From our first meeting, I've been struck by your intelligence, your grace, your kind heart. These past weeks have only deepened my admiration and my affection. He pauses, seeming to gather his courage. In this moment, he's not the perfect Victorian gentleman, but simply a man laying his heart bare. What I'm trying to say, rather poorly I'm afraid, is that I hold you in the highest esteem and regard. Jane Wilson, would you do me the very great honour of accepting my hand in marriage? Thomas's words hang in the air between you. This is the moment you've been anticipating, yet now that it's here, you find yourself genuinely overwhelmed. A proper Victorian lady, even one who has seen this coming for weeks, must appear surprised and overcome by a proposal. But your reaction isn't entirely performance. There's something about the vulnerable look in Thomas's eyes, the slight tremor in his usually steady voice, that touches you deeply. Mr. Fairchild, you begin, then correct yourself. Thomas, I am deeply honoured by your proposal. You pause, not to create suspense, but because emotion has made it difficult to speak. This isn't in the Victorian playbook. You're supposed to be composed, demure, gently pleased, but not passionate. Nothing would make me happier than to accept, you finally manage, your voice soft but steady. Thomas's face transforms. The careful reserve he maintains in public falls away completely, revealing such joy that it takes your breath away. For just a moment you glimpse the man behind the proper Victorian gentleman, a man of deep feelings carefully controlled. Jane, he says, and just your name in his voice sounds like a caress. You've made me the happiest of men. He takes a step forward, then stops, remembering propriety. Even now, engaged to be married, Victorian rules prevent any physical contact beyond perhaps holding hands, and even that would be pushing boundaries. May I? He asks, extending his hand. You place your hand in his, feeling the warmth of his skin against yours. Such a simple touch, yet in your heavily chaperoned world, it feels shockingly intimate. I've brought something for you, Thomas says, reaching into his waistcoat pocket with his free hand. He produces a small velvet box and opens it to reveal a ring. It was my grandmother's. The ring is beautiful, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds set in gold. Not as ostentatious as some modern engagement rings, but elegant and clearly valuable. It's lovely, you say as he slips it onto your finger. The weight of it feels strange, but not unwelcome. This visible symbol of your engagement will announce your new status to society before you speak a word. The moment is interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Your parents, having given you as much privacy as Victorian propriety allows, return to the drawing room. Thomas immediately steps back to a respectable distance, though his eyes remain on you. Well, your father asks, looking between you. Miss Wilson has done me the great honour of accepting my proposal, sir, Thomas says formally. Your mother's face lights up with genuine pleasure. How wonderful! We must have champagne to celebrate. The butler is summoned, champagne is poured, and toasts are made to the happy couple. Through it all, you remain in a daze. The speed of Victorian courtship is disorienting. Just weeks ago, Thomas was merely an acquaintance. Now he's your fiancé, your future husband. We should discuss dates, your father says once the initial celebrations have settled. And settlements, of course. Ah, yes, the practical side of Victorian marriage. Romance is all well and good, but marriage is also a financial arrangement. Your father and Thomas will negotiate your marriage settlement, essentially a contract specifying what money and property you bring to the marriage and what will happen to it afterward. My solicitor has drawn up some preliminary papers, Thomas says, all business now. I'd be happy to review them with you tomorrow, sir. Excellent, your father approves. And as for the wedding date, I was thinking perhaps 3 months hence, Thomas suggests. Enough time for proper preparations, but not so long a wait as to be trying. Is that a hint of impatience in his voice? A suggestion that he's eager to begin your life together? The thought sends a small thrill through you. 3 months seems appropriate, your mother agrees. Long enough for a proper trousseau to be prepared, but not so long that society might gossip. Because that's another Victorian rule. Engagements shouldn't be too short, suggesting impropriety or necessity, or too long, suggesting reluctance or problems. 3 months is just right. Thomas stays for dinner, his first meal as your official fiancé. The conversation flows easily, with a new warmth between your families. Plans are made, dates discussed, futures envisioned. Through it all, you catch Thomas watching you with an expression of wonder, as if he can't quite believe his good fortune. When he finally leaves, he bows over your hand, holding it perhaps a moment longer than strictly proper. "Until tomorrow, Jane," he says softly. "Until tomorrow, Thomas," you reply, enjoying the newness of his given name on your lips. The next 3 months pass in a whirlwind of preparations. Your engagement is announced in the newspapers. Congratulatory calls and cards pour in. Your mother and Mrs. Fairchild meet frequently to plan the wedding breakfast and coordinate other details. Your days fill with fittings for your trousseau, the extensive wardrobe a bride brings to her marriage, morning dresses, afternoon dresses, evening gowns, walking outfits, riding habits, nightgowns, dressing gowns, undergarments, gloves, bonnets, shoes, shawls. Everything a well-dressed Victorian wife might need for at least the first year of marriage. Then there's your wedding dress, the most important gown of your life. Pure white, of course, as Queen Victoria made white wedding dresses fashionable when she married Prince Albert. Yards of silk and lace, with a train long enough to impress, but not so long as to be ostentatious. A veil of delicate Brussels lace. White satin slippers. Every detail perfect. Your hope chest fills with linens, bedsheets, tablecloths, napkins, handkerchiefs. Many of them you've embroidered yourself over the years, preparing for this moment even before you knew who your husband would be. Between preparations, you see Thomas regularly but never alone. Victorian propriety means that even engaged couples are chaperoned. You take walks in the park with your mother following discreetly behind. You attend dinner parties and balls together, but always in public view. You exchange letters, the only private communication allowed, in which you gradually share more of yourselves than social settings permit. In these letters, you discover a depth to Thomas that his public persona barely hints at. He writes of his hopes for your future together, his admiration for your mind, his desire to be a husband worthy of you. Nothing improper, nothing that couldn't be read aloud in company, but sincere and increasingly affectionate. 2 weeks before the wedding, the Fairchilds host a dinner party for both families. It's a chance for extended relatives to meet before the ceremony. Your aunts, uncles and cousins size up Thomas's family and vice versa. The dinner is a success. Both families are well-mannered, prosperous and respectable. No embarrassing relatives to cause concern. "Your cousin Emily seems taken with my cousin William," Thomas murmurs to you during a moment when others are distracted. Perhaps another match in the making? You follow his gaze to where Emily is laughing at something William has said. Perhaps, you agree, they would suit well. "Not as well as we do," Thomas says, his voice low and warm. Such a simple statement, yet it sends colour rushing to your cheeks. Even now, weeks into your engagement, his direct attention can fluster you. A proper Victorian lady isn't supposed to show such transparent reactions, but Thomas seems pleased rather than scandalised by your blush. The final week before the wedding is a blur of last-minute arrangements. Your wedding gifts are displayed in the drawing room. Silver services, crystal decanters, fine china, ornate clocks and vases. Guests come to admire them and offer their congratulations yet again. The night before your wedding, your mother comes to your bedroom as Mary brushes your hair for the last time in your childhood home. Tomorrow, you'll move into the Fairchild's townhouse, where you and Thomas will have your own suite of rooms. "I wanted to speak with you," your mother says, dismissing Mary with a nod. "About tomorrow night." This is it. The Victorian version of the talk. Proper young ladies are kept so innocent that many go to their wedding nights with only the vaguest idea of what to expect. Your mother, progressive for her time, believes you should have at least some preparation. "Marriage brings physical intimacies," she begins awkwardly. "It is a wife's duty to submit to her husband's needs. It may be uncomfortable at first, but a lady endures with dignity." Not the most encouraging description of marital relations, but typical of Victorian attitudes. Women aren't supposed to enjoy physical intimacy. That would be unseemly. They merely tolerate it as a duty and for the purpose of having children. "The most important thing," your mother continues, "is to establish a harmonious household. Be attentive to Thomas's comfort. Never contradict him in public. Maintain a serene environment where he can rest from the pressures of business." This advice reflects the Victorian ideal of separate spheres. Men belong to the public world of business and politics, women to the private world of home and family. Your role as a wife is to create a peaceful haven for your husband and manage the household efficiently. "I believe you and Thomas will be very happy," your mother concludes, patting your hand. "He seems a kind man, and he clearly adores you." "Thank you, mother," you say, touched by her concern for your happiness even as you find her advice somewhat lacking. "I believe we will be happy too." That night, you sleep little, your mind too full of tomorrow and all it will bring. The end of your life as Miss Jane Wilson, the beginning of your life as Mrs. Thomas Fairchild. Your wedding day dawns clear and bright. The ceremony is at 11 o'clock at St. George's Church, Hanover Square, the fashionable choice for society weddings. You're dressed with extreme care. First the finest undergarments from your trousseau, then the beautiful white gown with its fitted bodice and full skirt, the delicate veil arranged over your carefully styled hair. "You look beautiful, miss," Mary says, tears in her eyes. "Begging your pardon, but you do." "Thank you, Mary," you reply, genuinely moved. Mary has been with you for years, helping you navigate the complex world of Victorian womanhood. "I'll miss you. You'll have your own lady's maid at your new home," Mary reminds you. Mrs. Fairchild has hired someone with experience serving married ladies. Another reminder of how your life is about to change. Even your personal servants will be different. The carriage ride to the church passes in a blur. Your father, resplendent in formal mourning clothes, helps you down and offers his arm to escort you inside. The church is filled with flowers and the rustle of fine fabrics as the guests stand to watch your entrance. And there at the altar is Thomas, looking more handsome than ever in his wedding clothes. His face as he watches you walk toward him contains such open admiration that you nearly stumble. No one has ever looked at you quite that way before. The ceremony is traditional and dignified. You speak your vows in a clear voice, promising to love, honor, and obey. Thomas slips a gold band onto your finger to join your engagement ring. The vicar pronounces you man and wife. Thomas is permitted to raise your veil and kiss you chastely on the cheek, the first time his lips have touched your skin. Just like that, you're married. Mrs. Thomas Fairchild. A new identity, a new status, a new life. The wedding breakfast that follows is elegant but not ostentatious. Your parents have spent generously but not extravagantly, a fine line in Victorian society where showing off wealth is considered vulgar. Champagne flows, delicate foods are served, speeches are made. You sit beside Thomas at the head table, still somewhat dazed by the morning's events. "Are you happy, Jane?" Thomas asks quietly during a moment when others are distracted by the cake being cut. "Very happy," you assure him. And it's true. Despite the whirlwind nature of Victorian courtship, despite the rigid social rules that have shaped every moment of your relationship, you've come to care deeply for this man, perhaps even to love him, though Victorian propriety means you've never used that word aloud. After the breakfast, you change from your wedding gown into a smart travelling outfit. You and Thomas will spend 2 weeks at his family's country estate in Kent, a modest honeymoon by modern standards, but typical for the time. The goodbyes are emotional but restrained. Excessive displays of feeling would be inappropriate. Your mother hugs you briefly. Your father shakes Thomas's hand and kisses your cheek. And then you're in the carriage, husband and wife, finally alone together for the first time. Thomas takes your hand, his thumb gently caressing your palm. "Well, Mrs. Fairchild," he says, his voice warm with affection, "shall we begin our adventure?" You smile, a genuine smile without the restraint Victorian society usually demands. "Yes," you say simply, "let's." The carriage pulls away, taking you toward your new life. Behind you, wedding guests throw rice and flower petals for luck and fertility. Ahead lies the unknown territory of marriage, its challenges, its joys, its intimate discoveries. Victorian society has rigid rules for wives, just as it does for unmarried ladies. You'll be expected to run your household efficiently, oversee servants, receive and make social calls, engage in appropriate charitable work, and eventually, God willing, become a mother. Your world will still be constrained by proprieties and expectations. But as Thomas's fingers intertwine with yours, as his eyes meet yours with warmth and promise, you can't help feeling that within those constraints, you and Thomas might find your own way. A partnership not just of convenience or social suitability, but of genuine affection and respect. The carriage rolls through London streets toward the Kent Road. Thomas points out sights along the way, his voice animated in a way you've rarely heard in public. You respond with observations of your own, delighting in this new freedom to converse without chaperones monitoring every word. By the time you reach the countryside, dusk is falling. The rolling hills of Kent are bathed in golden light, the hedgerows casting long shadows across the fields. It's peaceful after the bustle of London, the air fresh and sweet with the scent of spring flowers. "Almost home," Thomas says, as the carriage turns onto a tree-lined drive. "Well, one of our homes. We'll divide our time between London and here, if that suits you." "It suits me very well," you assure him, touched that he seeks your opinion. Many Victorian husbands simply inform their wives of decisions rather than consulting them. The house comes into view. Not a grand mansion, but a handsome country house of warm red brick with white trimmed windows. Lights glow welcomingly in the gathering dusk. Servants stand ready at the entrance to greet the new master and mistress. As the carriage stops, Thomas squeezes your hand gently. "Welcome home, Jane." And despite all the rules and restrictions of Victorian society, despite the whirlwind courtship and the uncertainties that lie ahead, you feel a sense of rightness. This is where you belong. With this man, in this life, you'll build together. The butler opens the carriage door. Thomas steps down first, then turns to help you descend. His hands at your waist are strong and sure as he lifts you down. For a moment you stand close together in the golden evening light, no longer bound by the strict chaperoning rules of courtship. "Shall we?" Thomas asks, offering his arm. You place your hand on his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath the fine wool of his coat. "Yes," you say. "Let's go home." Together, you climb the steps toward your new life, leaving behind the constraints of unmarried Victorian womanhood and stepping into the different but no less complex world of Victorian marriage. There will be new rules to learn, new expectations to meet, but you'll face them together, finding your own happiness within the structures society has built around you. As night falls gently over the Kent countryside, as stars appear one by one in the deepening blue of the sky, you and Thomas cross the threshold of your new home. The future stretches before you, unknown but full of promise, and with that, close your eyes and drift off to sleep, letting the echoes of Victorian London fade into dreams.